My name is Raymond, Whitehead, and I started 3 years ago a group called Direct Democracy Ireland, and it came out of my experience of living in Switzerland, which is a direct democracy. They've been a direct democracy for hundreds of years, and it seems to work very well there. My experience of it was almost 40 years ago when I went to study there as a student, and it was a bit of a culture shock, because in Ireland we don't have an involvement in our politics. We have no say. We just get to vote once in 5 years, some politicians in, and we give away our power to these people. There are very few situations in our lives where we give away our power over our own lives to other people, and especially over our money and our finances and things like that. Can you imagine giving that power over to anyone other than maybe some very close family member, and even then? But we give away the running of our country and expect not to have a say in it for 5 years. That's a crazy situation. Now, as I said, it was a bit of a culture shock when I went to Switzerland, because it was such a clean country, and Ireland was pretty dirty back then, 40 years ago. And Switzerland was spotless. It was like one giant toy town and tidy towns competition. You could eat your dinner off the street. You couldn't leave litter anywhere. You know, as an Irish citizen, I thought I was being responsible by leaving a Coke bottle on a windowsill instead of throwing it in the gutter. That was our idea of being tidy and a good citizen. And you'd have about 20 people lighting on you in Switzerland, telling you can't do that here, sorry, find a rubbish bin, put it in there, or take it home. And so this was all a bit of a culture shock for me, and I started looking around and found that every person, the sense you had when you were there was that every single person, every town, every village in Switzerland, and you see it more in small towns and villages than you do in big cities, because big cities are big cities. But in the small towns and villages, there was this sense that the people, the average person walking down the street, owned that street. It was their street. It was their village. And they actually did have ownership. And this was a huge surprise to me, that I saw on numerous occasions where had decided to do something, and the people just turned around and said, no, you're not doing that. Or this is what we want, and get on with it. And this was a complete reversal of everything that I knew about Ireland. You know, and in Ireland, a few years later, I watched the Wood Quay debacle, where 150,000 people marched through the streets. 250,000 people signed a petition against what the government were going to do, pouring concrete over a national site, historic site. The European Commission wrote to the Irish government and said, don't do this site is of European importance. The Danes wrote and said, this is part of our history, this is where Dublin started, and it was the Danish people that started this, and we'd found this major historic site. People chained themselves to bulldozers, some celebrities and a priest chained themselves to bulldozers against what the government were going to do, and they still went ahead with it. Now, what does that do to the psyche of a people who protest so much? You can see 100,000 people marching through the streets and we get ignored. What does that do to your psyche as a person? It demoralizes you and it makes you apathetic. You shrug your shoulders, you say, what can we do? Because there is nothing you can do. There is no mechanism that you can take these people to task. As Ben said, these people who have destroyed this country are still walking around and, you know, living in their mansions and in Marbella and playing golf and all this sort of thing. None of them are paying a price for what they've done. And we have no mechanism as a people to hold these people to task. So what do? You give up, you shrug your shoulders, and you become apathetic. And in Switzerland, there's this very real and very vibrant and very strong sense of ownership, real ownership of their town, of their village. And it starts from the ground up. It starts in every town, every little village, that the people have a direct input and can tell their politicians what they want. Now, they do elect them, they still have a representative democracy where they elect people to do a job. But if they're not doing the job, or they want something done or done another way, they have a mechanism called direct democracy where they can call a referendum, they get a certain amount of votes in their village or in their county or nationally, maybe 100,000 votes nationally, to call a referendum. So they can affect change at any level in their society, from their village to their county to the entire country. They can start that process. That's a sense of real power that these people have. And it applies to everything. It applies to the law. As Ben has been pointing out here, we have people, what do? We shrug our shoulders. We have nothing we can do, nothing we can do. So we need to change this. And when I started looking into it, I'd forgotten all about, I hadn't forgotten about it, but I hadn't thought about it because I had no interest in politics, and I was even worse than Ben. I'd never voted in my life up to a couple of years ago because I didn't have a say, I believed. You know, having a vote is not having a say. So I had that sense, and I'd watched, I'm old enough to have seen many demonstrations since, and just thinking, and I tried to engage with the government and with government ministers over the years, and I was ignored. And I'm not totally brain damaged. I mean, I believe I do have some ideas, but I was just ignored. I didn't even get a letter of thank you for your concern, or thank you for your input, or, you know, I met with ministers, didn't even get a letter of acknowledgement of having met them. So you get apathetic. But a few years ago, like so many people here, I got caught up in this property thing. And it wasn't out of greed, it was because I needed to put an extension in my house. My mother was getting elderly and I wanted to take her in and look after her and build a purpose-built extension to do that. And I borrowed a lot of money in order to do this, and I thought I could do it because I didn't have an income at the time. I wasn't actually working. I thought I could invest the money, make some money on it, build the extension, and it wouldn't cost me anything. I could pay back the bank. The whole thing imploded, as we all know, and like so many people, I got stuck, and I lost everything. And I'm still trying to hold on to my house at the moment, like so many people. But I woke up and I started thinking, how the hell did I get into this? I actually stupidly trusted these people for a while. Everything was grand, soft landing. If you don't believe it, go and jump off a cliff, as Bertie Ahern said, commit suicide. That was his answer. And I thought, what happened here? And there has to be something that we can do. And then I looked back at my experience in Switzerland, and I thought, that's what we need. We need that here. But how do you bring that about? And I just started by ringing around friends. And I got about as many people as are in this room to the first meeting. And they all said, yeah, we think this is a good idea. We'd like it to have a say. We'd like a piece of that. So I started from there. I got people to sign up. And we have now 450 members. With Ben as our leader, who I think he's a great guy, and I think he understands the concept of direct democracy. And it's growing, and we're hoping now, within the next couple of weeks, to register as a political party. So the purpose behind this party, this soon-to-be party, we hope, is nothing, mainly just to give that power of referendum back to the people of Ireland. And the one thing I discovered when I started thinking about Switzerland and what they had, I discovered that through another contact, that we actually had this under our first constitution. The founding fathers of the Irish Free State gave the power of referendum to the people of Ireland to guard against the very abuses that we have all seen over the decades since we got our freedom, to guard against those so that we had a mechanism for actually getting signatures to change things that we felt were wrong or immoral or illegal or whatever, that we could hold these people that we hire to do a job to task. If you get a guy to build a house for you, you're not expected to sit back until he's finished and watch him make a total disaster of it. You know, so why should you have to sit back and do nothing as you see your country going down the toilet? So this is why we need this mechanism. And what the Founding Fathers did was very profound. By giving the power of referendum to the people of Ireland, you needed 75,000 signatures to get to call a referendum. Now, the government at the time took that away from the people. The first government they were doing was a Fine Gael government, and they took it away from the people of Ireland. Now, it was in the Constitution, so you can't do that without calling a referendum. Any challenge to the Constitution has to have a referendum to see if the people agree with you. And they had to do that within 2 years of taking away the people's voice. So how did they get around it? Well, there was an Article 50 at the time which allowed them to make amendments to the Constitution. They couldn't change the Constitution like that, just take away people's voice. They had to put it to a referendum within 2 years. But they were allowed to make amendments. So what they did was, they said, we're extending the 2-year period that we have to put it to you for a vote to 8 years. So in other words, they denied people their right to have a referendum on what they had done, and they acted on that for the next 8 years. And at the end of that 8 years, what did they do? They extended it by another 8 years, effectively denying people their right to have that referendum as to whether they could take away that power, that voice from the people. And at the time they did it, the people got 100,000 signatures, just short of 100,000 signatures, to call a referendum against what they were doing. And what they said was, we're not denying you your right to have a referendum, we're just putting it off for a while. A bit like the Donegal by-elections, where the government had to be taken to court in order to fill a seat and to give people their right to have representation in the Dáil. They had to be taken to court, because they only call referendums now when it suits them, or when it doesn't matter, or when there's a challenge to the Constitution. But we don't have that right anymore. It was taken away. So what happened was, time went by and we gained our freedom, and a new constitution was drawn up and signed off on in 1937. And in that constitution, as Ben said, the summary of what they put in the second constitution was that the government retained the right of referendum. And as Ben said, they didn't have the right to retain in the first place. But we all signed off on it. Well, the people at the time signed off on it because so much time had gone by, it was forgotten about, and it wasn't even raised as an issue. The fact that we weren't given the right, the ability to have a referendum on it. It wasn't raised as an issue, and everybody just signed off on it in the party. Oh, we're free now, we have our own constitution and all of this. So we're living with the consequences ever since. And we're not looking for something new. We're not looking for something, well, it will be revolutionary if we can get it. If we can give that power back to the people of Ireland, it will be quite revolutionary. Because there are so many things that need changing, and I'm sure we're all aware of that. But it's not something new. The Swiss have had it, as I said, for hundreds of years, and it works very well there. Now, sometimes people get caught up in well, it's different for the Swiss, they're rich and they have all the banks and all that. But the Swiss only got their banks, well, it's not their banks, because banks are a law unto themselves. The banks used Switzerland after the Second World War because they realised that it was a very safe country. Hitler wasn't able to invade it because it's a bit like the Afghanistan of Europe. It's surrounded by Alps and mountains and nearly impossible to invade, even though it's half the size of Ireland. A few men can destroy an army from the Alps up in the mountains, a bit like the Russians couldn't take over Afghanistan. The Americans aren't doing a much better job. So the Swiss geography was a very protective thing for the Swiss. So the banks saw this and they thought, well, you know, that's a pretty safe place to have banks and to keep your gold and your money and all of this sort of thing. On top of that, and the other thing that was very safe for banks was they have the most stable government in the world. It's a direct democracy. Because the people are not going to have a big uprising. Who would they be rising up against? Themselves? They have the power to tell the government what to do if they're not doing what they're told. So they've nobody to blame if something goes wrong except themselves. So it's totally stable. They're not going to have a revolution tomorrow or some dictator taking over because the people will be standing for it. The people are sovereign in Switzerland, and we're supposed to be a sovereign people. We're the same sovereign people. And I heard a politician there about a week ago on the radio say, and he was pushing for a yes vote, and he said, oh, the people of Ireland are sovereign, they'll decide. And we're the same sovereign people who are being told you're voting at the end of the month whether you like it or not. And you're voting on a treaty that isn't finished whether you like it or not. And we're the same people who, when we voted no, were told vote again whether you like it or not in the Lisbon Treaty. We're the same sovereign people who Noonan and Hogan told in relation to the property charges, when the whole country sent them a message that we don't want these property charges, find another way, and we're told you'll all be criminals if you don't pay it. And if we can't criminalise you because the Data Protection Act won't allow us to criminalise you, we'll change the law in order to criminalise you. That's how sovereign we are. So it's time for change, it's time for a peaceful revolution. We are putting together this political party to bring about that change. We're just ordinary guys. We want what you want. We want that power to be able to be in the hands of the people and never be taken away again, so that we have the last say when it comes down to how our country is run and the direction it takes and the quality of life that we have. And as I said, it works very well in Switzerland. Switzerland was a very poor country until it became fairly wealthy, because the banks decided it was a great place to put their money and all that. But it has always worked, and it works through thick and thin. Whether you're rich or poor, it works, and everybody has a voice under direct democracy. And everybody can work to get signatures to change anything locally or nationally under that system. So, are there any questions in relation to that?
How would you go about getting the law brought back in so people have the right to...
Well, if we got into government, we would just call a referendum and ask the people, do you want to have a say in your own politics? Do you want to have this system, a mechanism, to be able to have a say locally and nationally in relation to your own? And if you want it, then that's law. It's put back into the Constitution and it won't be taken out again. And we'll make sure that there won't be the loopholes that were in it before, where they could amend it and stretch the period and deny you your right to have referendum or to call them. So that's our goal, our main goal. And we've other goals, but you know, that is the main goal. And even if we don't get into government and we get a few people elected, we can, we hope, bring pressure to bear on the government and force a referendum. Because one of the things that I found in starting this movement was that the government don't like the idea of direct democracy. They don't like the idea of people having a say in their own affairs. And asking them to give you back the power, it's never going to happen. It's like asking turkeys to vote for Christmas. It's just not going to happen. So you need to elect people like yourselves, like us, to get in there and force that referendum and get that information out there. Because anytime I've tried to broach this subject on the radio or television or any of these things, the French had a great idea about 400 years ago. They marched up to the gates of the and ripped the gates off, you know, we could do that. Well, then we see. Yeah, but we are a political party with a difference. Yeah, I'm very sceptical of them. I mean, I'm doing this, and I thought about it a long time. And short of having some sort of social disobedience or social disorder or whatever, this is the most peaceful way of doing it. People, even though they're suspicious of politicians, if it's the people in this town or village who are putting forward a candidate, what's to be suspicious of? You know who the guy is. Yeah, you can take him down a back lane or something.
Yeah. Can I just say, Ray, sorry, just because I probably would be the most suspicious people of politicians going, and I get exactly what you're saying for, and when it's raised every time, I go, yeah, that guy's right, I hate them. So I would be the most suspicious. But the only way to do this is when we talk, we couldn't suggest someone for you in this area.
Exactly.
I mean, that would be wrong for us to do on so many levels, because that would be old politics again. Here's a guy and you agree with him. Only you know who among yourself is a good guy. I mean, you can tell the village idiot from the clever guy or whatever it might be. So it'd be crazy for us to come and say to you... Exactly, yeah, that's the whole point. And it can work on local level.
Should they have this, sorry to interrupt you,
Yeah.
but they have it, I would agree with Tiff, now when I hear this with parties,
Oh,
I
look.
think we've gone away from that.
I'm just saying...
If you call it a movement or
Yes,
democracy,
exactly.
I mean, people hear parties
I know,
and they just
exactly, and that's the only barrier we really have to break down. They love the idea, but the minute you say politics, remember I said a lump in my throat when he used to talk to me about it, and you're absolutely right, but we can't call it anything else, because unfortunately that's just the mechanism we have in a democracy. We just never had real democracy before.
Can I come in for a minute?
Yeah.
Raymond used another word a few minutes ago. He used the word movement.
Yes.
Now, I think that in describing the phenomenon you're trying to create, that's the word you should use.
Yes.
For legal purposes, to register for electoral purposes, you have to register as a political party.
Yes.
But never use that formula.
Yes.
Never talk about a party. Talk about a movement.
Yeah.
Now, that's one thing. It has to be mass.
Yes.
It's very difficult to construct a movement on a single issue. But what you've got to do is persuade people that this is an issue that allows them to voice their grievances on the whole host of other issues.
Yes.
We already have a mass movement.
You're right.
It's called the household.
Yes.
Half the people have taken a deliberate decision to break the law, to engage in a constructive act of civil disobedience. I think you should build on that. I think you should talk about how this is a way of giving expression to that. And just one tiny, minor other point. Direct democracy is a good way of describing what it's about. Kramer and I have been talking about exactly the same idea for years. We've called it participatory democracy. They're both sort of nerdish expressions. I think people's democracy is the better label, I think, myself, to give to.
But the only thing is, it was called direct democracy kind of from the Constitution and stuff like that. And once you explain what it is, that's what it is. And I hate the political term. And you were probably in Dublin at the big march for the household thing. I found it so... upsetting when I looked up at the Fine Gael building and they were pulling down the blinds on us. Do you remember that? And I just thought, I just felt like such a peasant. And I tell you, I didn't feel sovereign then. And that's how our elected officials treat us. They are actually waving out and then pulling the blinds down on us. I mean, that's how they treat us. Yeah. So that's why I get where you're coming from. But as I say, if we go in there, you must remember when we register, which will be very shortly, we do get airtime. And we're guaranteed airtime. And no more can RTE then start to ignore us. We do get airtime. And at that stage it will grow, because once you get the message out and we say to people, look, we have gone a good bit around the country talking and we get the same reaction and the same questions in fairness, because most people, and that's what I love, because then you're not talking to gullible people. Because the last thing you want is a load of just gullible people. So you want people saying, oh, politics, I hate them, and how can I trust you? That's the type of people we need right now in this country.
I don't mean to be negative by that.
No, it's absolutely not negative.
I'm very interested in it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh no, it's much better to say it, because if nobody says it and everybody thinks it and you go home, well, that was a wasted trip. But it's up to the people themselves in your own areas to do it. Like the guy in Castlebar who set it up there was the local bank manager, and we went, are you sure? And they said, no, he's a nice guy, he's well respected in the town, and he really loves what you're doing. So we said, well, it's up to you. How could we say no to
and
them?
I do believe that there are politicians out there that once this gets out into the public domain will actually back us. And there will be independents there who will back us. And there's a lot of people. It's amazing when you talk to them one-to-one. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, it might be quite related to the subject matter. I found this evening very enlightening. And I'm probably maybe the oldest person here tonight. I was born in 1933. It pleased me to see the way Ireland has gone in that long lifetime of mine. But anyhow, I didn't come here to make a speech. I don't want to hold up these good speakers. But I just want to ask a sort of a related question. A friend of mine over there, Tommy Sinnott, Tommy raised a question earlier about Freemasons, the Illuminati, the secret powers that are driving all the countries of Europe and beyond, America, etc., the whole world, and their aim, whether you know it or not, is total control of all of us. The new world order and the one world government is coming. It's coming down the track. It's coming down fast. That's what I want to say. Just I finish here. I don't know how many people, and I'd love to see a big show of hands, how many people here tonight have seen a recent issue, a very recent issue of the Sovereign Independent. I'm not promoting it, by the way. It's a newspaper that comes out occasionally. The Sovereign Independent. Now,
it's on the internet. You can look it up on the internet.
Yes,
Sovereign
yes.
Independent.
There's a lot of reading in there, and there's a lot of what I'm saying and what my friend Tommy said and what the speaker said tonight. Get that information. It's vital. It's vital for the future of every man, woman and child in this country.
Yeah, I want to say something, right? Imagine yourselves 5 years' time, and imagine what might be happening then. It could be chaos, it could be mayhem. And then think back to now. Now is an opportunity that you have, which you'll never have again in your lifetime, to do something. Because the power is in your hands. You can go and you can put these politicians in and you can do what you like with them. But they're not going to change. They got us into this mess, but only we can get ourselves out.
They're not allowed to change.
Yeah,
They're controlled.
that's it.
Yeah.
But you are in a unique position, right? Or we as a nation is in a unique position, a crossroads, where we can go down the road of Iceland or Greece, right? But tonight, you can do something. You can join.
And we have forms here for people if they'd like to sign up as members. You don't have to do anything just to be, as a member, you'll be supportive, and the more people we have to register, the better.
And just what I'd say is, we're a small enough island to do it. The beauty about this is it's actually easy enough to drive around and do it. I would hate to be doing this in Germany or the United States because it's actually too late for them. We could actually be the beacon of Europe if we do it. And it just takes us just to do it, that's all.
Claire is going to come on and she's going to speak and she has some answers for us. We're going to look at it from an economic point of view, and we need to push on. It's getting late. We'll go to that gentleman and then we'll go on to Claire.
You see yourself like when you start up amalgamating with other politically minded people.
Yeah,
well, I think they'll be amalgamating with us. We're the only ones talking. There are a lot of groups out there. When I started this, there were a number of people came along and had their own ideas and went off and set up groups saying more or less the same thing, but with a slight twist to it. But like one or two people here might have said, why political party? We were the only group talking about using the system, becoming a political party, using the mechanisms that are there, the structures that are there to bring about that change. Being just a movement without having the structures behind you and using the power that's there is meaningless, because we've seen hundreds of thousands of people over the years marching through the streets and just being ignored by the powers that be. Use the system to change the system. And it's very easy, you just have to come together. And I know that all these people who went off and set up different groups, who came to my meetings, will, once we have a platform, go, yeah, I'm voting for him. Because we were the only ones there that will have that chance, that mechanism to go in and make those changes. We'd be the only ones who are saying this to put the power back into the hands of the people, and not just standing waving placards. So that's the difference. That's an important issue. We will find people once we go nationwide and we have that platform and we get out to the media the message. A lot of people converging on us and supporting us, I believe now, and I think most people in the room here probably would support us.
Is there any particular other political party other than your own that you could point to and say, yeah, I agree with all people?
Yeah, but they're not a political party. He's an independent. He operates under the banner of...
Flanagan and a few others. But the problem with this when you're starting is, if you affiliate with anyone, already the suspicion of infiltration and everything else. And I think if you keep it as a very pure movement for the people, I mean, I've no interest only for me and my children and the people of this country. I'm not part of any corporation, as I'm sure you all know. And once it's done, I'm quite happy to step down and step out, because politics still grates.
Yeah.
Sorry, that chap there, we'll take that question, then we'll go to that girl, and
So
then we'll go there.
there's this gentleman who's had his hand up for a very long
Oh,
time.
I haven't seen him.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say, you want to think them guys up there, the very sense a bunch of bananas. They come in green, they turn yellow, and there's not straight one in the bunch.
But the use of that, if you don't mind.
Sorry, Gary.
I just want to know is what you're planning to do? Is it going to be on a voluntary basis, or are you going to be looking to be paid in that same paper money that you know? So this is it, like, because I give myself every day to people in this country and my family. I put myself out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if I was going into power, if you went into power and sent a clear message that it was a voluntary, you don't even want the part of their system, that would be probably one of the only ways that I could really take you serious.
Yeah.
It have to be voluntary.
Well, I know.
But you have to be paid.
Well, yeah, no,
Yeah,
practical expenses.
Like, if it was for me, I still have to feed my family. Now, I go around the country anyway. I understand, yeah. I would expect a decent wage for a decent week's work, the same as anyone else. And if you represent the people, give me a fair day's pay. But I'm not looking for £2 grand a week expenses and all this bullshit that we have and state cars and nonsense like that. I'm quite happy to live in the house I have for a decent wage. I'm not looking for anything only to be able to feed my family and educate them. And that's all. And if I'm servant of the people, or anybody else should be servant of the people, then that's it. You know, a decent wage for a decent week's work. There's nothing wrong with that.
Go to that lady there, because you have to push her.
I'm still very concerned about the term political party, and I don't think that's really been taken on board here tonight, that people have really genuine concerns about that. Second point is, and coming first, I'd like to see it going towards more, and go back to Christie's point, participatory democracy rather than representative democracy. Now, we don't have enough time for me to put across my opinion on that tonight.
Participatory democracy is direct democracy.
Yeah, but no, but I think it's more than that to be, with respect to yourselves, because participatory democracy for me, like, for example, what if Clifford gets elected under your thinking in a couple of months' time or whatever, and he was off to the dog for 5 years. Now, I know you're talking about recall, and I would be in favour of that. But what is to say that Clifford sort of loses touch with the people, although I don't think Clifford would? But he might. So why can't I know you have recall, but why not give that experience then to under recall, with experience then to somebody else could take over? I think it should rotate.
But that's it.
And linking up with different groups.
Absolutely.
But I wouldn't be interested in a political party. I think it has to be people's movement and groups coming together like Christy said. Sorry, this is my opinion.
And you call it a political party or a movement or a united front or the People's Front of Judea or whatever you call it, when you register the mechanism, because look, you know, and I know you know, from marching for the household tax, and you do it, and if I say to you, right, come on, let's do it next week, and let's do it next week, because I do it, and I go down and I fight sheriffs and I fight receivers, but we're only putting out fires. And I know personally, because I can't keep doing it, I was on the household march, and I'm also fighting sheriffs and everything, and you just can't keep doing it because there's 10 more getting dragged out of the houses for the one I'm saving somewhere. And that's the problem. And unfortunately, we have to register as a political party. I hate the word politics.
Yeah, listen, we all hate it.
But that's what it is.
No, listen, the honest truth is, we all hate it. But there's no option. What other option is there?
Only marching.
We're not to get into politics.
Yeah. Can I say something on that?
Let's just change the system.
Just quickly, if you have a political party, right? Political parties have a party line. They have a party manifesto. They have, you have join Fine Gael, this is what Fine Gael does. You're Fine Gael, you do what we say. But if you have people elected from from different areas, like here, you basically have independence under a direct democracy banner. It's not the same thing.
Yeah, it's much more powerful than it is. Because a lot of people say
it's not the political parties. It's not the political parties. It's the system. Now the Swiss still elect politicians, but they have the last say as a people. We just want that back.
They don't do what you want to do.
Yeah, we just need that back, and the only way to get it back is for ordinary citizens to get into power and give it back to themselves, because the politicians are not going to give it back to you. And you still need politicians or people to run the country, but you need to be able to step in and say,
100,000 people marched on the Dáil. What did the government do?
Criminalised.
Nothing. Nothing. But the point is this. Imagine that was a political party. There's a difference. That gentleman there. Yeah.
Sorry, how long are you on the road?
Me? Just over a year.
A year on the road. What difference have you made?
I've saved a few people and kept them in their homes. More than any politician has done for them in the last 20 years. But I also try to educate people. I've had a number of people who write videos and they've done the same with sheriffs and that.
I think your videos are
It's
really
not
inspiring.
Not finished the question. I'm just coming to the point. You're a year on the road. You saved probably 10 people. So I'm assuming, as far as you're concerned, will possibly fail. You're trying to get into the system to make it work.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely, because I'm only putting out fires. I don't kid
Just
myself.
firefighting.
Like, if for 10 people, there's 40 more every day losing their homes.
So you have to get into the system.
You have to
You have
from
to.
the system. But you get into the system and change the system. I mean, this is a banking problem. This isn't a farming problem or an electrical problem. It's a banking greed corporation problem.
Are you sure that the system is not going to swallow you up like a
It may do. Absolutely it may do.
If you pay him
But
enough.
you can recall me back out as soon as it does it. And like, what keeps you straight is knowing that no matter what I would say or what anybody else says, you have a
Can I
referendum.
ask, how many people seen more than one of the videos we put up? More than one. Okay, so how many people have seen one video we put up? Okay, you need to go and watch the videos of Constitution Halts Sheriff. That's one of them that we started with. But then we have other stuff as well that we're doing. We don't get paid for it. No one pays us to do what we do.
You see, when you change...
We know we're going to lose our homes if we don't help people stay in theirs.
Yeah.
That's
I'm
reality.
not attacking you on that.
Yeah.
But I have absolute respect for you.
Yeah.
But it's just that I think you're fighting an uphill battle.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a fight. We choose to fight. What fight do we want to fight then?
Absolutely. I know that, but it's the same with the household charge. You're running.
If we don't fight that
don't
fight,
fight
we might as well just throw our towel in and say, look, we're all done, pack up and get out of here.
Last man out, turn off the lights.
Can I just make a point that might allay some of the concerns that Christian this
Yeah.
The doubt is that by getting involved, I mean, as I say, I think obviously you have to register as a political party to contest elections, but I would be very chary of describing ourselves as a political party. I think we should call ourselves a movement.
Yeah.
That's not my main point. Hold on. That's not my main point. The process of getting there, of getting into the system to change, is what swallows up radicalism all of it. So we have to make the process be the message. In other words, if we're talking about direct democracy, if we're talking about total accountability, if we go into the system as elected representatives, we're not, by definition, we're not accountable anymore. We don't have to be accountable. So those who are prepared to take on that role of being elected representatives must make themselves subject to recall. Must say they sign an undertaking that they will, if elected to a local government, to the county council, the local election, the ones coming up next in 2014, if elected to the Carlow County Council, the Wicklow County Council, you sign an undertaking. You sign it. That you will, first of all, you hold a meeting with everybody, public meetings, at least every month. And if there's a petition among the local community to recall you, you will submit to that.
Absolutely.
Even if that means that you're breaking, even if that means that you're leaving the seat vacant because the system isn't providing for a by-election.
That's fine.
And if the system doesn't accept that, then you lead the people in breaking the system.
Okay, that's fine. Here's one of the other issues is that none of us will be coming in here from going in this area. You will choose from among ourselves. So that's for you to choose.
Yeah.
So it's not a matter, we're not saying to you, trust us, put your faith in us, put us into politics. That's not what we're saying.
Nobody should be trusting me if I were that person. I should be signing an undertaking.
Yeah, but
I don't
you can do that.
every month.
Yeah.
And if even doing that, I do things that
We would have absolutely no problem
and you
with that.
feel I'm being something
Yeah.
system.
Yeah, and I would have absolutely no problem with that.
And that's
the
part of our
reason-
manifesto as well. That is in our manifesto.
The reason we don't just call ourselves like a movement, as you say, because say I came down and said, oh, this is a movement and such, and then you heard, he's after registering as a political party. I understand that, and that's why I say, like, when it was mentioned to me, you know, your blood boils at the idea of politics. So I understand exactly where you're coming from. But unfortunately, this is the system, and democracy is politics, whether you like it or not. So there's no other way, or else you just keep marching every week and get the blinds pulled down on you.
I'm absolutely, politics to me is not church sport. It's party politics.
Yeah, it's politics.
It's
politicians.
We're all highly political. No, we're all highly political. Everybody in this room is really wouldn't be here tomorrow.
Of course.
But we oppose party politics because the party system is bullshit.
Exactly.
And how to change that is by putting the power back in your hands, and that's what happens in Switzerland. The government can't make decisions without taking into account what the citizens will think about those decisions.
Okay, listen.
They can't just override them.
I just want to ask this. Do you want to continue talking like this, or do you want Claire to come on and speak? You know,
Yeah, well, listen to Claire.
What do you want?
You know,
We want Claire.
Okay.
Thank you very much, everybody, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks,